Good afternoon, all. So today we will have a session on future-proofing your digital transformation with Sitecore Headless Service with Amit Kumar. I hope you all know Amit. He needs no introduction. Still, he is a six-time Sitecore MVP and a senior Sitecore architect. Uh, so Amit, over to you. We can start now.
Hey, thanks everyone. Thanks SUG Kolkata and Kaushik and Arjun for organizing this. So thanks everyone for giving me the time during the weekend. So in today's session, I will be covering more on the future Sitecore Headless Services. So I will be covering how you can select a Sitecore Headless Services to build your digital transformation and what are the things which you need to consider or the data points which you can use uh, to select a Sitecore Headless Services. So the agenda is the introduction of the session. What is Sitecore Headless Services? So available Sitecore Headless content product. Why move to Sitecore Headless? And feature comparison between different types of uh, headless products from the Sitecore, and reference architecture and important things when you are proposing the Sitecore Headless Services. So this is about me. I'm having a 19 plus years of experience, mostly on the Microsoft tech stack, and you can reach out to me via any social media channel. So currently I'm working as a solution architect with Avnad. Introduction, as I explained earlier, that I will be covering upon what are the decoupled things are present in the headless and what are the technical component or a technology component which you need to be aware, and what are the benefit of the Sitecore Headless Services and why it's offer a scalability and what are the flexibility for there for the development team as well as for the project. So now I will be moving to the what is Sitecore Headless Services. So before moving to the Sitecore Headless Services, I will be touching upon a headless CMS. So most of the you guys have worked on the ASP.NET MVC. So maybe some of you not aware about what is headless CMS. So as you are aware that when you are working with the ASP.NET MVC Sitecore implementation, then you will be having a CMCD component and you will be deploying all your .NET code base, which is having a CHTML file into both the boxes most of the time. So in this case, your backend UI code, whichever you are writing it, like a controller code or any pipeline update, and front end code base are tightly coupled with each other. So if you need to do apply any changes, either it will be a backend changes, either it will be a your front end changes, you need to deploy a complete deployment package altogether to the server. So which will affecting the deadline also, right? And also if you need to share the data with any of the channel, so where you need to share the data about a page layout level, so there is no out of the box things are present, right? But when you are coming to the headless CMS, so in those cases, what happened that the backend UI, which is your CMS instance, and the API which are present in the CMS instance, which will share the data with you are part of your CMS role, and rest of the front end which is accessed by the end user, those are having a bundling of a code, front end code base, and whatever the required static resources are needed for front end, those are deployed there. So in this case, both are loosely coupled. You do not need to rely on any of the system to do any deployment. So that is the beauty of a headless CMS. And also you will be having out of the box CMS APIs. You do not need to write a proxy layer or anything, so that you can easily share your CMS content with the external sources. So you can showcase your Sitecore CMS as a single source of truth for the content. So this is the Sitecore Headless Services building blocks. So most of the you guys, if you have worked on the JSS or started using the Sitecore Headless, you have gone through this diagram. So what this diagram is explaining about that. So you can use the Sitecore Headless Services with Sitecore 9 onwards, right? So when the Sitecore introduces a headless services, then it used to be called as a Sitecore JSS framework, right? So now Sitecore JavaScript services. So now Sitecore 10 onwards, it is being called as a Sitecore Headless Services. And they are having the rendering engine, media handler, graphical layout service. Those small modules are present, which is serving the purpose to provide the headless content delivery. So if you are on the XMXP in a Sitecore 9 onwards, or if you are in the old platform, then you can upgrade to Sitecore 10. And to use the Sitecore Headless Services, you need to install the Sitecore Headless Services module. So before using the Sitecore Headless Service module, you should have a license for these Sitecore Headless Services. So for that, you need to connect with your Sitecore sales rep, because if you will install it and try to use that, you will be not able to use that. You will be getting error while provisioning anything or doing anything. So it's better to check your license file. You are having a subscription or a license to use the Sitecore Headless Services or not. And it's also involved the cost factor. It's not like that it's a free. So if you are going to propose Sitecore Headless Services or a headless framework, you need to include the license cost also in your estimation. And currently, there are two type of SDKs are there, like a .NET Core, so that you can build a Microsoft Tech Stack application, and also support for a client-side scripting framework like a Next.js, Vue, React, and Angular. But currently, the more focused is on the Next.js, right? Why? Because Sitecore Headless platform, which is in the SaaS called as XM Cloud, that is utilizing a more feature on the Next.js. So all the improvement or the features are coming in the Next.js SDK. So if you are planning to go with the client-side scripting framework, so you need to go with the Next.js. So it's not hard and fast rule that you always need to use the GSS SDK, but there are benefits of using it. Why? Because if you are not using the GSS SDK or like .NET Core or these client-side scripting SDKs, then you will be not able to support the experience editor for your pages, as well as if you need to do any multi-site or a multi-site and other feature like a, I forget that multilingual and those things you need to do that, or the automatic routing identification, those features are there which is coming with the SDK. You will be not able to get it. Then you need to write your own plain vanilla Next.js code base, and you need to write all these things in your middleware to use that. Why I am explaining these things? Because some organization which don't want the dependency on any type of SDK, that's why they are going with the SDK independent development. Why? Because for example, if you are using any IAM system like Azure or anything, and you have using the .NET, sorry, Next.js authorized SDK, you are using npm packages, right? But your Next.js version is lower in your code base, right? Then you will be not able to upgrade your other third-party dependencies. So in those cases, some organization will go with the SDK independent. So when you are using the Sitecore Headless Services, you will be able to access the headless content delivery via a API endpoint. So Sitecore is providing you the Sitecore Layout Service API endpoint and also the Sitecore GraphQL API. So the API endpoints. There are two types of GraphQL endpoints are present. One is the simple GraphQL schema based, and other is the Edge GraphQL. The simple GraphQL or the schema is present from the Sitecore 9 onward. So if you are using the Sitecore 10, by default, only the edge schema is enabled. So suppose if you are planning to move or upgrade to Sitecore 10 from Sitecore 9 headless, then you need to enable your simple GraphQL schema. But it's better to change to the edge GraphQL, because if in near future, if you are planning to move to the Sitecore XM Cloud, which is only supporting the Edge GraphQL schema, then you have to rewrite all your GraphQL queries which you have written in simple GraphQL to Edge GraphQL, because it will not work in the Edge GraphQL. And also Sitecore XM Cloud is only using the GraphQL endpoint. So if you are using the layout service endpoint in your Sitecore 10 or a 9, then it's better to change those endpoints to the Edge GraphQL endpoints, not the layout service endpoint, because XM Cloud, Edge GraphQL Sitecore Experience does not support the Sitecore layout service. Now I'm moving to the section and explaining about what are the different products offering from Sitecore which can be used for a headless content delivery. So first thing is that Sitecore is already having an experience platform and experience manager, and we all of us have used that. And we can host these two products either in the cloud, or we can go with the self-hosting, or we can go with the Sitecore managed offering also, right? In the cloud, we can use the PaaS, or we can have a VM, or in managed cloud where Sitecore will be hosting in a PaaS for us, and it will be managed by the Sitecore itself. So these two products can be hosted in these ways, cloud or self-hosted, and you need to install the headless services module to utilize the headless content delivery. When we talked about a Sitecore hosted SaaS offering. So currently XM Cloud Plus, and Content Hub ones are there, which you can use to build up the website or a digital transformation. So their platform provisioning and everything will be taken care by the Sitecore itself. You do not need to provision anything, and also you do not need to buy any other license apart from buying a license from the Sitecore itself. You do not need to buy a license for your infrastructure or any other license for the Sitecore. And as I was explaining before, this Sitecore 9 itself, and currently also it's present, we are having a old item data service, and also the RESTful APIs are there, which is providing the API endpoints so that you can access the child element, Sitecore items from the content tree, and also some level of a depth will be there. You can get the child also. But the only issue here is that it will be not giving you the presentation details or a page layout details. Suppose if you have creating any pages in the Sitecore, so generally you will create the page template, right, which is having a metadata for a page, and then you will be adding a uh, placeholder into that, then the rendering and the data source, right? So those details will be not coming with these APIs, but some projects and the organization have written their own headless framework and written a proxy layer on top of this, and they are having all the presentation details. But if you don't want to spend a cost on the licensing, then people will go with this. But this implementation also required the effort and the cost. So you need to wisely select which approach you need to follow. So why move to Sitecore Headless? So why I'm having this slide, because you cannot straight away and present that now we are going with the headless, right? Because no one will be able to adjust these things randomly. So you need to showcase that what are the benefits are there if you will move to the Sitecore Headless, and what are the things are present in your current project which will be helpful to move forward or faster development when you will be using the Sitecore Headless. So first thing is that the flexibility and decoupling. As I was explaining, the headless CMS allow you to separate content management, right? Means a backend from the content presentation like a front end. So this decoupling provide you the flexibility, right? So that developer can build a custom front-end application using any of the technology stacks. Suppose you are thinking that your .NET 4.8 framework or ASP.NET MVC, you are not able to build up a flashy UI or a UX-driven application, right? So in those cases, front-end, if you are going with the Next.js or a React, so you are getting a lot of out in-build or a community-driven packages are there which will provide you with very interactive components like a text box or a form or a tab component, right? So that will be very easy for your development team, right? So it will be flexibility for them. And also the decoupling, right? You can do the deployment to any of the hosting provider like a backend, or you can do with the front end. So there will be no dependency on these two deployment options. Developer freedom, as I said, that developer can select any type of a tech stack or a framework to build up like a React, Angular or anything. Even if you are not going with SDK, you can use any other framework also, which you are easy to implement and which you are thinking that is a future proof for your organization. And future proofing, like when you are doing the digital transformation or you are planning to upgrade, so maybe you are thinking to share the data with any other organization, also to build up a mobile application. So in those cases, you are making your platform future proof for the upcoming year, so that you can build up a mobile application, kiosk or offline application also. You can do that. So you do not need to invest anything if you are planning to build in near future. Business requirement. So that is also very important. So some business users are very tech savvy, right? So they are going with the competitor website and they are keep coming why we don't have these type of things. So sometimes we are having a restriction in our application to build up a those type of user interfaces, right? So I'm not talking about the technical, I'm talking about a front end, which is very uh, time consuming to build up in a your .NET framework. You can build up, but it's required a lot of JavaScript and everything you need to insert into your code base, right? Which altogether make your page more heavy, right? So in those cases, you can suggest a headless so that you will be not having any dependency, because sometimes business users are coming to build up any functionality very fast, which is from the backend point of view is very easy, but front end it's a very heavy. So that will be the benefit for the business user. And you can, if they are planning to build up a mobile application or kiosk application, there also it will be very easy to showcase that it will be beneficial. Multi-channel delivery, as I covered already, you can build up a application to cover any of the target any of the channels. Scalability and performance, like you can easily scale your headless, because when you are going with the traditional MVC implementation, generally you will start with the two nodes for the production, right? And three nodes or a two nodes for the production and one node for the or two nodes for the lower environment. So in those cases, you do not need to uh, increase the load or scale the your content delivery server. If you are not using the Experience Edge, you can go with the single, because you will be having a CDN in front of your CD boxes and also in the front of your front end application. So in those cases, you can save the high load on your content delivery. So that way you can decrease the infrastructure cost. And if you need anything with the scalability of front end, you can easily scale that. Why? Because you do not need to scale altogether every role from the Sitecore, and also uh, you generally will be using the SaaS product, or you will be hosting on the Linux, which are cost savvy as compared to the Windows server. Project requirement, like as I was explaining, you are having a very uh, large number of microsites which are keep coming, which is required a development process or your SDLC life cycle very difficult to manage, or your sprint planning will be very difficult because you are keep coming with the new and you are simultaneously doing the feature development. So in those cases, it will be very useful. And also, if you are having a list of functionality which are more UI handy or which is required in lot of integration. So in those cases, most of the organization or a project is having a integration layer tightly coupled with the site core, so that they can easily save the cost and they do not need to rely on any other layering, right? So in those scenarios, it's very useful. You are keep updating your layer or an integration point in a different layer if you are going with the service-oriented architecture. So that way you can do very fast implementation. And if you are having a front-end heavy team member, then it will be very easy to accommodate those people also into product, and you can educate your back-end team member also and motivate them to learn the front end. So in those cases also for the PMOs also it will be very useful. Technical requirement like your upgrade is pending and your uh, organization tech stack is not going to use the uh, .NET 4.8 based UI application. So in those cases, you need to forcefully needs to move to the latest version, right? And also your support is going to sunset. So then you are having upgrade is the option. And suppose if you are going with the upgrade and you need to upgrade any backend system, and also if you are having dependency on the third-party modules which are not available for a 10.4, so it's better to do the estimation and design thinking to compare that which one is the feasible, right? So these things are the data point you can showcase to the product owner or the audiences to get a sign off to go with the Sitecore Headless Services. Now I will be moving to the feature comparison between XP, XM and XM Cloud. So first I will be covering the hosting of its content management role. So as you are aware that in normal ASP.NET or a Sitecore, we are having a different type of roles, like a content management role, content delivery roles are there, and publishing roles are there, and analytics, XDB roles are there, right? So in those cases, when you are going with the headless, right? So content management role where the content author will go and do the content management. And in those cases, you need to manage the hosting and provisioning of a content management role, right? Either you need to do the self-hosting or you need to use any cloud provider, PaaS or Azure VM or a AWS VM based implementation. So you need to take care of complete infrastructure. But when you are going with the XM Cloud or XM Cloud Plus, the content management role provisioning is taken care by the Sitecore itself. So you do not need to provision or a manage, or you do not need to bother about the upgrade. It will be taken care by the XM Cloud, Sitecore itself. So if you are not aware about what is XM Cloud and XM Cloud Plus, so let me add some points on that. So XM Cloud and XM Cloud Plus both are the SaaS product. The difference between these two are there that XM Cloud Plus is coming with all the composable product from the Sitecore like XM Cloud, CDP, Personalize, Sitecore Connect, Sitecore Search. But there is a difference is that XM Cloud Plus is also having the CDP and Personalize, but it is not having a full featured of these two products. It will be having a subset of that. But with XM Cloud Plus bundling, you will be getting all the composable product and you do not need to buy separate license. You can go to sales rep and get a combined offering. What will be the costing? So that is the difference between these two products. Now, in case of a content delivery also, if you are going with the headless and you are not using the experience edge other SaaS provider, then the content delivery from where your front-end application will access the data is your CD. So you need to host yourself or cloud. These two options are there. And then you will be getting a GraphQL endpoint as GraphQL endpoint and layout service endpoint. So you need to decide that which endpoints you need to go. As I already covered in earlier slide, that's which one is a good option. So you can go with the GraphQL Edge point. And when you are going with the XM Cloud and XM Cloud Plus, so you will be getting a content delivery from a Experience Edge. So that is a different from the content delivery. So in upcoming slides, I will be covering on the architecture of Experience Edge. So I will be explaining what is that entity in the Sitecore says. So it is a CDN enabled and you will be getting Edge GraphQL endpoint. So you need to get the data from Experience Edge, but there is a thing that you can also use these Experience Edge with the XM and XP, but you need to be aware about limitation that there is a request limit of 80 requests per minute is a limit from Experience Edge. If it is not cached any request, then it will be treated as a new request. And also you cannot upload a more than 50 MB of a media file in the Experience Edge. It cannot be served from the Experience Edge. So if you are planning to go headless and you are planning to use Experience Edge with your on-prem or a cloud-based XMXP implementation, and you are having all your media files in the your XM and XP instance, then you need to think about a DAM system like a Sitecore Content Hub so that you can utilize the media file from there if you are using the Experience Edge. So these limitations you have to consider. Front-end hosting means earlier every application of .NET we will be deploying on the say content delivery, but in the front end when you are going with the headless, so that piece of a app is referred as a rendering host because it's rendering the application and used by the end user. And some organization who are cost heavy, they are using the content delivery node itself and they are opening a separate port for the uh, front-end application and installing the Node.js, because in a one server by default only one port is open, that is port 80. But if you are deploying two application which will be served separately, then you need to enable the port. So in those cases network complexity will comes into the picture which you need to take care. But it's suggested to go with the Vercel, or if your organization don't want to rely on another SaaS provider, then they are doing the self-hosting. So it's better to use the Azure web app, which is a Linux web app, or you can host your own Linux server and you can do all the things into that. That is the options for you in case of both XM and XP. And when you are going with the XM Cloud or XM Cloud Plus, so preferred partner is the Vercel. So you always need to go with that because you will be getting out of the box DevOps pipeline or the build pipelines are there. You do not need to write your own, and also the inbuilt connectors are there so that you can deploy from XM deploy app. You can directly deploy to Vercel. You do not need to write any pipeline code or any. But if you are going with any other hosting provider like Netlify or AWS, or you are spinning up your own like Azure infra DevOps you are using, then you need to write all the pipeline by yourself because there will be no connector which can be utilized here. So that will increase the cost. So that also you need to take care. And now coming to experience editor support like editing rendering host. So when you are working with the ASP.NET MVC, then when you are opening any page in the experience editor, then you are utilizing your content management box or a role to open the page. So all the request and rendering will be happening from there. But when you are going with headless, it is in the connected mode. So you are not having the integrated mode, right? Then your application rendering needs to happen from the front end app, right? So if you are on the higher environment, then it is recommended to have a separate rendering host for experience editor. But if you are on the lower environment, you can use the same rendering host. But in those cases, you need to manipulate the URL of a CD and the CM while accessing a page in the experience editor. So those manipulation, you have to do that. But it's better or is suggested to always go with the separate experience editing rendering host, which is similar to rendering host, but it is utilized by the CM roles when user are opening a page in the experience editor, and it will be access the data from your content management role, not from the content delivery or the experience edge. So hosting can be similar. It's up to you where you wanted to host it, like a cloud or self-hosted or a Vercel. In case of XM Cloud Plus, this editing host will be provisioned and maintained by the Sitecore itself, but you cannot access it separately for the uh, end user. For that, you need to provision or use the Vercel, but for editing, you do not need to do anything. And now moving to the search. So as you are aware that in the Sitecore, we will be having a two type of search use cases. One is for the CM, other is for the end user. So here I'm talking about a CM, which is not for the end user. In Action and XP, when you are provisioning it, so you always go with the Solar Cloud, right? And it will be available for you. So you need to do the hosting for a CM role by yourself. So you can host either your own instance, or you can go with search text, or you can utilize any other third-party search provided for CM related things. But when you are going with XM Cloud Plus, you do not need to provision or manage. It will be provisioned and managed by the Sitecore itself. But you cannot utilize this for your end user, and also you cannot deploy any computer index field, or you cannot create any new indexes because it's a headless. So you cannot deploy or suggested to deploy these type of update into the in the SaaS platform. So now move to the search functionality, which is for the end user. So in XMXP, you are provisioning XM cloud, your Solar Cloud, so then you can use that for your end user also by utilizing the web indexes, and you can deploy a computer index fields or anything. If you are going with XM and XP, not XM Cloud, then you can deploy any of the computer index field. You can create your own custom indexes, but in those cases, you need to write a API layer which will be internally connecting with your Solar instance to do all these things, because some people are directly accessing the Solar URL in this in their front end application, but all the orchestration you have to do in the front end, which is not suggestible. So always have a middle layer like a API layer which will be connecting with your Solar instance to get your data. So that is the only benefit when you are using the XM and XP. So you can utilize your existing indexes which you are using in uh, the ASP.NET. You can utilize that. In case of XM Cloud Base, so the best option is that you can go with the Sitecore search, so that you can do the crawling, website crawling, which is easy, and you are having a AI-driven front end or a content delivery of your search item, which is very good to implement a personalized or a custom experience for the end user. But you can also go with setup of your own Solar infrastructure. Then you need to write some sort of a webhook to publish a data to Solar, because Solar required some sort of a input to ingest a data. So in that case, in XM Cloud, we cannot override the publishing pipeline like we used to do in XNXP. Then you need to use the XM Cloud webhook, and then webhook you can write in your custom code base, or you can also utilize Sitecore Connect as an integration platform, which will publish that, which will receive the data from your XM Cloud, and then you will orchestrate the data, and you can push to the Sitecore search. That is the way to do that. So you need to spend uh, cost in the end user search functionality. But in the case of a XNXP, you already provision your Solar infrastructure, so you can utilize the same and use the web indexes. Analytics option, because you are moving to the headless, then you will be not having a user context. Then in those cases, you need to rely on the third-party product like a Sitecore product, other SaaS product like a CDP Personalize to to implement the personalization. And also you need to take care about, if you are having a very heavy XDB data, then how you are going to utilize historical data from XDB to CDP. So those data migration things you have to take care, or you need to put a line item for that also in your estimation. And personalize, because in Sitecore, when you are using ASP.NET MVC, so developer generally will create a different data sources to implement the personalization, right? You will change the images, or you will be getting a data from a backend system, and you are presenting to the user on the basis of a user persona or some other inputs parameter. But in case of a personalized, you need to write your own experiences in the form of a JavaScript or a HTML. So that is also required a complete rework if you are having a more personalization use cases. So you need to look into those effort also and see that it is possible to implement those use cases which you already having in the XM and XP in ASP.NET MVC. And if you need to go with the more granular level of comparison, so you can check this good article from a fish tanks, which is covering more granular level, component level things for a comparison. Now moving to the reference architecture. So here I have explained about how you can utilize your XM and XP to implement a headless application while also you can run the your ASP.NET MVC application. So in the center you are seeing CM and CD are there, and you can publish the data. It can reach to your Solar provider. But if you want to utilize any third party, you can also have a custom pipeline to push data to Covio or SearchStack or Golia or a Sitecore Search itself. The CMS role will access the data and the media file from your CM, and same way the editing host you are having separately, which will get the media and content from your CM role. So in case of a end user, so ASP.NET MVC, you will be deploying your code base in the content delivery server. So media and content will be coming from there. Or if you are using the CDN or any third party system for a media files, then you will be getting a data from there. When we talked about the rendering host, like headless application for end user, then if you are using the content delivery or XMXP based implementation and CD for content delivery, then the media and content will come from there. But if you are using the experience edge with XM and XP, then media file and content can come from a experience edge, as well as you can integrate the any DAM system also. And your website can be crawled if you are you these search provider itself, or you can have a trigger also, and you will be having a service layer which will be integrating with other third party system or external system or upstream and down system to share the data. With that way, you can run both uh, your .NET as well as existing MEP application from a same instance. So this architecture is explaining how you need to envision a connectivity between a different components from your existing architecture. Now moving to how the Sitecore search can be integrated in a granular way. So CM and CDs are there. Either you can crawl the data from your ASP.NET and VCR head application, or you can write the publishing pipeline, or you can have a webhook, or you can utilize Sitecore Connect itself, right, to have as a middleware, and from there you can ingest the data to the Sitecore search. There is a one thing is that the currently Sitecore search is not having any connector which you can utilize for a real-time update of indexes. So there will be a dependency of a website crawl, which will be a 1 hour. Every 1 hour you can crawl, but if you need to immediate publish any data, then you need to write a custom implementation. So with this way, you can integrate Sitecore search. So when we talked about a XM Cloud, so as I was explaining, you need to use the Sitecore Connect as an integration platform, or you can have a your own webhook, custom webhook.NET Core, or you can do the hook deck to do that. Create your custom webhook, and which will cache the event from a XM Cloud when the publishing is happening, and then orchestration of data. You can do that and push the data to the Sitecore search for a real-time update, like you are having a any legal things which you need to update, or you are having any medicine in the pharma domain or a pharmaceutical domain, then in those cases you will require a real-time update of a data if any content author is doing that, right, for illegal complexities. So in those cases you need to write a custom code base. So that effort also you need to consider. Now moving to the experience edge. So as I was telling, I will explain. So Experience Edge you can utilize with Content Hub 1, Content Hub, XM Cloud, and even the Experience Manager or AXP. So in those cases, you will be doing the content authoring in the content management system. But instead of publishing the data to the web database, you will be installing a Experience Edge connector, right? Which will be publishing the data to the Experience Edge. That is also a SaaS product from the Sitecore, which is CDN enabled. So you do not need to do the scalability, or if you are having a region-based dependency, you do not need to install a node in different regions. So it will be automatically taken care by the Experience Edge, which will provide the graphical endpoint in the form of a JSON responses so that you can consume anywhere any of a media channel to implement it. So the main thing is that you will be publishing data to Experience Edge, not the web database. But you need to aware about the limitations of this when you are using it. So you can check I have written an article which is explaining more about the limitation and everything. You can check that also. Now, the Sitecore editing rendering host, how the editing rendering host will be utilized when you are opening the page in the Experience Editor. So when the content author from your headless implementation is making a request, so there is a render post method is being, there is a post call is happening to the JSS render endpoints of your front-end application, which will also receive the router, which page needs to render, like about us page, contact us page. Then it will render that and return that to the CM role, so that CM role can render it, because you already having a rendering engine, media handler. These things are present, which will help you to render the page in the Experience Editor. And also you already using the JSS SDK from the Sitecore. Then that request will be having all the required outer div element, which will be help to render the page in Experience Editor. So same way you are having the CHTML file or a render your controller, right? You will be using the Sitecore provided HTML tag, right, to render the text box or a image. Same way SDK also providing those type of things when you are rendering the page in Experience Editor. So it will become a Experience Editor friendly. And one thing I need to call out here, if you are working with any client which and you are using the Vercel as a editing rendering host, and they are having a security concern that their lower environment web app should not be accessible outside of the uh, their organization, right? No other people can access that. So Vercel is providing the credential to enable the authentication. But if you have using that web app for a experience editor, then when the CM role is triggering this HTTP post request to your editing and the host, and you have enabled the security, then you will be getting a forbidden error. So you will be not able to utilize Vercel in that manner. So in those cases, you need to go with the Azure-based hosting so that you can enable the IP restriction and you can apply the security. Now, important things to remember while you are doing the estimation, deciding it is good fit or not. So analyze your business requirement, which can be fulfilled or not with the headless. Like if you are having IAM integration and large amount of integration, and for that maybe you need to write a complete API layer and everything, which is required a more time and effort. So you need to see that the budget is there or not and the timeline is acceptable or not. So that also you need to take care. And technical requirement like you are having a Sitecore contact, you are creating a virtual user, those things very easily in the Sitecore. But when you are moving with the headless, everything you need to write it from scratch, and you do not need to, you cannot take a benefit from the Sitecore inbuilt functionality, right? Like a virtual user. So that also you need to take care. And if you are having a technical debt or any NFR which cannot be fulfilled, and you are not having a skill set to build that, and you are having a identity and access management system which you are using in .NET, and they are maybe not having the API, or you are using the in-house which is a .NET based or not providing the API. So those things you need to consider, and also the local dev setup, right? Your organization is not having a physical infrastructure or a licensing cost for the Docker. So that also you need to consider. And also the XDB data migration if you are having. So if it is a heavy and required a lot of time or they don't want to move, then also you need to think about, or is it worth to use the explain XM as a headless CMS because you are having a keep getting a upgrade request or a security patches, then is it best to move to XM Cloud or not, or your organization is ready to use the SaaS product or not. That also you need to consider. Development flow, as I said, that you are not having a team member who are well versed in the Docker, or you do not having a time, or you are also having a strict lighthouse scores which you need to achieve, which is not possible. What type of implementation which you are going to implement, right? In some cases, it's not possible, right? And some SDKs which are not secured and you don't want to use that, but without that you cannot implement your application. And also the content realization you need to set up, right? So those things also you need to see that, and also you need to remove the dependency from our .NET code base, and you need to write everything by your own. So these are the things you need to take care, and also the user experience. If you are using the experience edge, then you should not have a circular dependency, but you are having a content tree which is very huge, and you need to do the complete restructuring of your information architecture, and it is also required the time, right? So that also you need to do that, and also the content management, right? So when you are moving to the headless, it's not a lift and shift. You need to make compatible your item for the Sitecore headless framework. So it is required a time. So that also you need to think, and you need to write a custom code base. And there is no tool present which will complete do the migration with the compatible headless tree. There is no tool. You need to write a code base for that. And for that, you need to consider the content migration effort. Analytics, as I said, that you need to think about the personalization use cases as well as the CDP use cases or tracking use cases, which can be fulfilled or not. And PIA data, you again needs to see that if you are having a client data protection requirement, how you are going to manage that, all the cookie management and everything, you need to rewrite it. So those things you have to think about. So these are the things which you need to remember before proceeding to present to your stakeholders, because you need to go with the positive as well as negative points. So first showcase a positive point as well as show the limitation which can impact or can rise the risk during the development. And these are the some references which will be helpful for you to understand the Sitecore headless experience edge and the Sitecore search related things. I will share the details of this. And now I have moved to the interesting section of Q&A. So if you guys have any questions, anything or doubt, so I'm happy to take those questions.
Yeah, thank you, Amit. I can see two questions there in the chat. One is from Arjun that in Next.js context, did we need to do anything in case of Next.js upgrades? Have you ever encountered any issues handling upgrades on either side?
First question is in next year's context, did you we need to do anything in case of next year's upgrade had ever? Yes. So when you are using the Next.js, right? So Next.js versions are keep coming, but your SDK, which is JSS SDK, that is also having a dependency on the Next.js. So if you will go to your, there is a JSON file is there, right? Which package.json, right? Which is having a version number of each and every packages. So you need to see that if the new package which is coming from the Sitecore is having a latest versions of Next.js or not. But if you are planning to do the upgrade, so it is not a independent upgrade. You need to go with the Next.js, sorry, Sitecore JSS SDK plus the Next.js combined upgrade you need to go. If it is not supported, then you can't go with that. And also the easiest part to do the upgrade is that provision a new application with new JSS SDK and do the folder based comparison. Then that is the best way to do the upgrade when you are planning to do the JSS upgrade or anything. But if you will do just upgrading the what I can say that then just changing the version number and those things, then if you try to build, it will fail, because in the new JSS SDKs sometimes, like similar to the .NET assemblies, the namespaces have been removed or it have been changed, so you will be not able to build your application. So
Thanks.
I answered. Yeah. What are the recommendation strategies and tools for efficiently migrating content data from? So there is no tool are present, so you need to write your own tool. So the best option is that you can use the Sitecore PowerShell SP scripts to write it. So in those cases, first you need to identify that what are the main content area which you need to target. So don't go with the in a one shot. You need to identify the page template which is really needed, because in old implementation there are unnecessary page templates and pages are there which is not needed. So identify the pages and start moving that pages, and then have the list of the headless base implementation page templates which is having a required headless template, and you need to inherit and you need to change the placeholder location and everything. It's a time consuming task.
Uh, okay. And for
The
X, yeah,
uh, complex personalization, right? So as I said that personalization can be doable in the Sitecore personalize, but you should have a team member who are proficient in using that, right? You can implement the personalization, you can get a data from a third party system, or you can get a data from Sitecore itself. So there are many ways to implement that, but you need to explore, you will be able to utilize that or not.
okay. And can we migrate XDB in XM Cloud? Is it possible?
You cannot migrate XDB data in XM Cloud. As I said that you need to buy a CDP product license, that is a data lake, that is for the analytics data, which is having a segmentation and everything. That is a data lake, and you will be getting a some sort of a data exchange connector. From there you can move the data to the CDP.
CDP. Okay.
It's XM Cloud is not hosting any user generated data. It is only having the content which is serving from the website for the end user.
Mm. Thank you. Thank you, Amit.
And
Thank you,
in
Amit.
Sitecore Headless, we
Yeah,
can
yeah.
write graphical query for such features, and based on the output we can render the touch that some cloud with Sitecore search SDK can be used to derive the indexes from Sitecore search, but in case of some cloud with Solar, yes. So you can write the graphical query in Sitecore Headless to implement the search feature, but that search feature is very simple. You can create the search pages, you can write a search query, but the facets and the filter will be hard coded. For example, if you are having a articles and news press releases, right? So you need to hard code those path or a name of that IDs to your graphical query, and you need to build up and you need to implement a pagination. So it will be a simple, it will be not a very flashy, because everything needs to be hard coded. It should be rendered in your page itself, and you will be selecting those options and pushing that to your Sitecore GraphQL code base in your Next.js, and you are replacing those placeholder in your code base. You already having a if else, right, in your like we used to do in the .NET. That way you need to build up and you need to make a query into the uh, your Sitecore system as GraphQL endpoint to get the data. You can implement even the pagination also. You can implement that, but SDK XM, yes, in Sitecore search you will be getting a SDK, right, to get the data. But when you are using the Solar Search, as I said that you can provision your own environment. You need to write your own code base to publish the data to your Solar with the help of a webhook. And you need to write a API layer, as I said that, in your code base, which will receive the user input as you used to do in the uh, similar to the graphical use case which I have explained, right? So you can build up a UI there. You will be capturing the selection from the user, and you are passing that filters to your API layer, which can be in the .NET Core or in the Workato or in the Sitecore Connect, right? And that will be internally connecting with your Solar Search to build up. So in one of the implementation, I have used a Solar for a headless, where I have created a complete API layer for the Solar, which will be accepting all the filters like ascending, descending, and every filter which I am displaying in my front end. And I am dynamically changing the values or the filters which selected by you. So you have to write your own custom implementation. So site could be an headless like how we create in MVC and consume it in that application. Yes, so suppose if you are going with the XM and XP implementation, right? And you don't want to provision a separate service layer or a API management, then in XN and XP, you can create the controller, like you are having a controller which you can use as a HTTP GET or HTTP post, right? That you can do that, and that controller you can expose to the outer world. But it's better to create a API, don't play with the controller. But some people are still using the controller when they are implementing the headless to save the cost. But as a architectural consideration, it's better to go with the API layer. So you can utilize the MVC controller. But it is not doable in the XM cloud. It is only in the old implementation of XM and XP. Yeah. Anything else? So yes,
Okay.
and one thing is that yes, you can use the MuleSoft is the best option. You can go with the API management, which is very useful to use that because it is also providing you the connector. Or you can go with the .NET Core, or you can write your Azure function, whatever is easy for you. You can use the Azure API management also for those implementation.
Thank you, Amit. I believe that's all. There is no other questions. And thank you very much for your insightful session. And team, thank you for joining us. I know it's weekend, but
Yes,
still
and
you.
thanks for having me and giving me the time and during the weekend, right? So it's a nice talking with you, a nice type of audience are there which asks the question. Generally people will not ask the question. So thanks everyone.
Yeah, it was a great session, Amit. I would appreciate that.
Thank
Thanks
you.
everyone for joining.
Thank
Have a
you.
great weekend. Have a great weekend. Bye.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thanks
Bye.
everyone. Bye.